In today's episode, we take you to a community devastated by the death of a promising young athlete. What first seemed like a tragic accident soon reveals a story of secrets, betrayal, and a shocking love affair that ended in murder. Kyle LLB, an 18-year-old high school senior from Carbondale, Illinois, had a bright future both on and off the football field. As the star quarterback of Carbondale Community High School's football team, Kyle was admired by classmates and respected by coaches. His athletic talent earned him the nickname Golden Boy, and he was often highlighted in local sports reports. He dreamed of playing college football, and several universities had shown interest in recruiting him. Kyle lived with his parents Richard Ralph Ellerby, 48, and Cindy Ellerby, 45, in a comfortable suburban home. Ralph, a sales manager, had been a promising football player himself until a knee injury ended his sports career. He channeled his unfulfilled ambitions into Kyle, pushing him to succeed in football. Cindy, once lively and energetic, had become more withdrawn, battling alcoholism and feelings of inadequacy. The pressure of maintaining appearances weighed heavily on the family, especially on Kyle, who felt burdened by his father's high expectations. Despite his confident exterior, Kyle was deeply sensitive and struggled with his sexual identity, a secret he kept from everyone, even his closest friends. The only person who knew the truth was his football coach, Robert J. McMurdo, with whom Kyle had developed a secret sexual relationship. This relationship was both a comfort and a source of stress for Kyle, who feared what would happen if the affair were discovered. In the days leading up to his death, Kyle was focused on his future, preparing for final exams and looking forward to graduation. He spent long hours practicing football, determined to earn a college scholarship. However, the stress of hiding his secret life took its toll. Friends noticed that he seemed more distracted and withdrawn than usual, and his normally bright smile was replaced by worry. At home, tensions were high. His mother's drinking was spiraling out of control, and his father's demands were growing more intense. Kyle's last days were a mix of hope and fear, as he balanced his dreams of a bright future with the weight of the secrets that would ultimately lead to his tragic end. On the morning of May 12, 2014, around 7:30 a.m., Ralph Ellerby walked downstairs to the basement of their Carbondale, Illinois home, expecting to find Kyle getting ready for school. Instead, Ralph stumbled upon a scene that would haunt him forever. Kyle's lifeless body lay at the bottom of the stairs, surrounded by sports equipment and memorabilia, including the football trophies he had earned over the years. The basement, usually a place of pride for the Ellerby family, had become the scene of a tragic discovery. Ralph's first reaction was shock. He stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. The 48-year-old sales manager, always proud of his son's accomplishments, was now hit with a wave of panic and disbelief. He rushed to Kyle's side, frantically checking for any signs of life, but it was clear his son was gone. The boy who had been the center of his world, whom he had pushed so hard to succeed, was now lying dead at his feet. After a few moments, Ralph managed to pull himself together enough to call 911. His voice trembled as he reported what he had found. "My son, he's not breathing," he stammered. The 911 operator tried to calm him, asking for details, but Ralph could barely focus on the questions. All he could think about was Kyle and the crushing realization that his son would never live out the dreams they had worked so hard for. When the paramedics arrived a few minutes later, they confirmed what Ralph already knew deep down. Kyle was dead. The scene was eerily quiet, except for Ralph's heavy breathing and the faint sound of the television in the living room, which had been left on. Cindy Ellerby, Kyle's mother, still drunk and asleep upstairs, was unaware of the tragedy unfolding below. It wasn't until Ralph's anguished cries echoed through the house that she awoke, disoriented and groggy from the night before. When she finally understood what had happened, her screams pierced the quiet morning, adding to the overwhelming grief in the Ellerby household. The Carbondale police arrived at the Ellerby home around 8 a.m. on May 12, 2014, just minutes after Ralph's frantic 911 call. Detective Sally O'Malley, a seasoned officer known for her sharp instincts and no-nonsense attitude, led the investigation. O'Malley, 42, had been with the Carbondale Police Department for over 15 years and had handled many tough cases, but the death of a popular high school quarterback like Kyle Ellerby was sure to be one of the most challenging. When O'Malley and her team entered the basement, they found a scene that didn't quite add up. Kyle's body lay at the bottom of the stairs, with a large football trophy nearby. The room was cluttered with sports equipment, helmets, jerseys, and footballs scattered around. But something about how the body and the items were positioned caught O'Malley's attention. While Kyle's head injury seemed consistent with a fall, the lack of blood and the angle of his body suggested something more suspicious. The basement was dimly lit, with just a few small windows letting in the morning light. The walls were decorated with posters of NFL stars like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, and shelves filled with trophies showcasing Kyle's athletic success. O'Malley carefully studied the scene, noting that there were no clear signs of a struggle, but her instincts told her this could be a staged crime. As the forensic team began taking photos and gathering evidence, O'Malley focused on the heavy football trophy lying next to Kyle. It was large enough to cause a fatal blow, and there were faint smudges that looked like fingerprints. O'Malley had it bagged as evidence, suspecting it might be the murder weapon. The rest of the house was searched. The living room TV was still on, playing Good Morning America on ABC, while Cindy Ellerby sat on the couch in shock, a half-empty bottle of vodka on the coffee table. Ralph, who had discovered Kyle's body, paced the floor, visibly upset, but cooperating with the officers. O'Malley's instincts told her this wasn't just a tragic accident. The odd details and eerie atmosphere hinted at something more complicated. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Kyle Ellerby's death wasn't what it seemed. The first person O'Malley turned her attention to was Coach Robert J. McMurdo, the 46-year-old football coach at Carbondale Community High School. Coach McMurdo was well known in the community, not just for leading the team to victories, but also for his charismatic and strong presence. He had a reputation for being tough but fair, someone who pushed his players to be their best. However, O'Malley suspected there was more to him than met the eye. At the police station, McMurdo was cooperative but clearly nervous. He sat across from O'Malley in a small, dimly lit interrogation room. The walls were bare and the only sound was the hum of the air conditioning. O'Malley began by asking McMurdo about his relationship with Kyle. McMurdo spoke highly of Kyle, calling him one of the most talented and dedicated players he had ever coached. With that body, Kyle had a natural gift, McMurdo said, his voice trembling. He could read the field like no one else. I had big plans for him. When O'Malley pressed further, asking if their relationship extended beyond football, McMurdo hesitated, visibly uncomfortable as he tried to stay calm. He admitted he cared about Kyle, but only as a coach cares for any of his players. O'Malley wasn't convinced. She could see guilt and fear in his eyes, as if something was about to be exposed. She then directly asked if there had been any sexual relationship between him and Kyle, and McMurdo immediately denied it, but his voice quivered, a sign O'Malley couldn't ignore. O'Malley shifted the conversation to the morning of Kyle's death, asking where McMurdo had been and whether he had spoken to Kyle that day. McMurdo claimed he had been at home preparing for practice and hadn't talked to Kyle since the previous day. However, when O'Malley presented records of sexually explicit text messages and nude photos exchanged between him and Kyle the night before, McMurdo's calm exterior began to crack. McMurdo's face went pale as he realized the evidence was mounting. He explained that he was conflicted about his romantic relationship with Kyle, which had turned sexual after seeing Kyle shower after practice. He said he genuinely loved the young man but feared the consequences if their relationship was discovered. Throughout the interrogation, McMurdo continued to declare his innocence, but his nervousness only increased. He repeatedly wiped his forehead with a handkerchief, his hands trembling slightly. Despite his attempts to stay composed, it was clear that the pressure was getting to McMurdo. O'Malley knew she had shaken him, but she also realized that without a confession or stronger evidence, she couldn't arrest him just yet. The interrogation ended with McMurdo being released, though O'Malley made it clear he was now a prime suspect in the investigation. Next, Detective Sally O'Malley turned her attention to Richard Ralph Ellerby, Kyle's 48-year-old father. Ralph, a sales manager at a local car dealership, was well known in Carbondale. He had a reputation as a proud and driven man who lived through his son's achievements. Once a star high school athlete himself, Ralph's football career had been cut short by a knee injury. He had poured all his unfulfilled dreams into Kyle, pushing him to excel in football. On the morning of Kyle's death, Ralph's reaction was intense. He was visibly distressed and repeatedly asked officers what had happened to his son. Witnesses noted that he seemed more agitated than heartbroken, focusing on how this tragedy might affect Kyle's legacy and the family's reputation. During his interview with O'Malley, Ralph was cooperative but defensive. He spoke proudly of Kyle's accomplishments, emphasizing how much he had invested in his son's future. Kyle was destined for greatness, Ralph said, his voice filled with emotion. He was going all the way to the NFL, and I was going to make sure of it. But when the conversation shifted to Kyle's personal life, Ralph's tone changed. He became evasive, especially when O'Malley asked about Kyle's relationship with Coach McMurdo. O'Malley had already uncovered that McMurdo's relationship with Kyle was sexual. Ralph often attended practices, games, and team meetings where he and the coach discussed Kyle's future. When asked if he knew about Kyle's involvement with McMurdo, Ralph hesitated but eventually admitted he had heard rumors, though he insisted he didn't believe them. However, O'Malley wasn't convinced. She had evidence suggesting Ralph knew more than he admitted. Text messages between Ralph and McMurdo found on Ralph's phone showed he was aware of the relationship between his son and the coach. He even helped arrange dates and offered to be a lookout. In one message, Ralph congratulated the coach, suggesting their sexual relationship was behind Kyle's success in a previous game. Despite Ralph's efforts to stay calm, O'Malley noticed cracks in his composure. His voice occasionally wavered, and he seemed unusually anxious when discussing certain topics. O'Malley suspected Ralph's deep-seated homophobia and fear of scandal had created a mix of emotions he struggled to control. As the interview ended, O'Malley felt Ralph was hiding something. His unwillingness to fully acknowledge his son's involvement with McMurdo and his discomfort made him a key person of interest. The final suspect on Detective O'Malley's list was Cindy Ellerby, Kyle's 45-year-old mother. Cindy had once been a vibrant woman, a former teen beauty queen with a lively personality. But by May 2014, she was a shadow of her former self, battling alcoholism and feelings of sexual inadequacy. Her marriage to Ralph had become strained and loveless, and she often felt overlooked in her own home, especially as Ralph focused all his attention on Kyle's football career. Cindy's alcohol abuse was widely known in the community. Neighbors often saw her at the local liquor store buying bottles of cheap vodka. Her drinking had worsened to the point where she was rarely sober, leading to erratic behavior that distanced her from friends and family. Her relationship with Kyle had also fallen apart. She resented the pressure Ralph put on him and was deeply jealous of the close bond between father and son. On the morning of Kyle's death, Cindy had been at home. When the police arrived, they found Cindy in a state of hysteria, alternating between uncontrollable sobbing and incoherent shouting. Her disheveled appearance and the smell of alcohol on her breath raised immediate concerns for the officers. During her interview with Detective O'Malley, Cindy was unstable and emotional, shifting between anger and sadness. Her responses were often incoherent. When O'Malley asked about Cindy's relationship with Kyle, her answers were evasive. "Kyle was my baby," she repeated, but when pressed for details about their interactions before his death, she struggled to give clear answers. O'Malley also asked about Cindy's relationship with Coach McMurdo. Cindy's reaction was revealing. Her face twisted with anger, and she accused her son of taking Coach McMurdo away from her. "Kyle had the mind of a hussy and the body of Tom Brady," she spat, her words filled with bitterness. "Why did he have to take my man?" As the interview continued, Cindy grew more agitated, especially when O'Malley suggested Kyle's death might not have been an accident. Cindy's mood swings and erratic behavior made it hard to get a coherent story from her, but O'Malley noted that her anger toward McMurdo and jealousy of Kyle's relationship with his father seemed to fuel her emotional outbursts. Despite her unstable behavior, Cindy remained a person of interest. O'Malley couldn't ignore the possibility that Cindy's deep resentments and deteriorating mental state might have played a role in Kyle's death. The detective left the interview with more questions than answers, but one thing was certain: Cindy Ellerby's troubled past and volatile emotions made her a central figure in the case. Hey, true crime case solvers, if you're interested in more real-life murder mysteries, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Do you have thoughts about this case or have a case you'd like us to investigate? Leave a comment. Stay safe, true crime case solvers. On May 18, 2014, just a week after Kyle Ellerby's tragic death, a shocking development shook Carbondale. During Kyle's memorial service at the local high school gym, where hundreds of mourners had gathered, Ralph Ellerby's unexpected outburst left everyone stunned. Visibly intoxicated and overwhelmed with emotion, Ralph stood up in the middle of the service. His words were slurred, but the message was clear. He confessed to knowing that his wife, Cindy Ellerby, had killed their son. Ralph revealed that he had helped Cindy stage the scene to look like an accident in a desperate attempt to protect their family from scandal. The crowd fell silent, stunned by the gravity of his confession. Detective Sally O'Malley, attending the service to observe the family's behavior, immediately realized the investigation had taken a critical turn. After Ralph's confession, the Carbondale Police Department quickly acted, taking Ralph into custody for further questioning. The police returned to the Ellerby home with a clearer idea of what they were looking for. Back in the basement where Kyle's body was found, the officers searched for evidence that supported Ralph's story. They discovered traces of blood that had been poorly cleaned and additional fragments of the shattered trophy missed in the initial investigation. Forensic experts re-examined the evidence and confirmed that the blood at the scene matched Kyle's DNA. Ralph's confession, combined with the physical evidence, painted a grim picture of the events leading up to Kyle's death. It became clear that Cindy had struck Kyle with the trophy in a fit of rage, and Ralph had helped cover up the crime. The community was left shocked by Ralph's revelation. What had once seemed like a tragic accident was now seen as a brutal murder, concealed by the very people who should have protected Kyle. This new evidence, along with Ralph's confession, brought the investigation to a turning point, leading to a shocking arrest. Following Ralph's confession at Kyle's memorial service, the Carbondale police moved quickly. On May 20th, 2014, just 48 hours later, Cindy Ellerby was officially named the prime suspect in Kyle's murder. Cindy, a 45-year-old homemaker struggling with alcoholism, had been a troubled figure in the community for a long time. Her erratic behavior and strained relationship with Kyle had been noticed by neighbors and friends, but the truth of her involvement in his death was still hard for many to accept. Detective O'Malley led the effort to arrest Cindy. The team arrived at the Ellerby home early that morning, the atmosphere tense, with overcast skies matching the mood. When Cindy answered the door, she looked disheveled and tired, as if she had aged in the days since the memorial. Without much resistance, she was arrested. The weight of the moment hit her, and she broke down in tears, not out of surprise, but out of resignation. She knew the truth had caught up with her. As Cindy was escorted to the police car, the neighborhood remained eerily quiet, with only the distant hum of morning traffic breaking the silence. Inside the station, Cindy was formally charged with the murder of her son, Kyle Ellerby. During the interrogation, Cindy was emotional but cooperative, offering a detailed account of the events. She admitted that on the night of Kyle's death, she had been drinking heavily. An argument with Kyle, fueled by her jealousy of his relationship with Coach McMurdo, escalated. In a blind rage, she grabbed one of Kyle's football trophies and struck him, killing him instantly. Cindy explained how Ralph, upon finding out what had happened, decided to help her stage the scene to look like an accident. Together, they moved Kyle's body to the bottom of the basement stairs and scattered sports equipment around to make it appear as though he had fallen. Ralph had hoped this would keep their family's dark secret hidden, but his conscience eventually betrayed him. Cindy's arrest shocked the community. The Ellerby family, once admired for their success and unity, was now exposed for their dark reality. Those close to Kyle felt a mix of anger, sorrow, and disbelief as they struggled to understand how a mother could do such a terrible thing to her child. Cindy Ellerby's trial for the murder of her son, Kyle Ellerby, began in late August 2014 at the Jackson County Courthouse in Carbondale, Illinois. The case became the talk of the town, with local media covering every detail. The courtroom was packed with people, many of whom had known the Ellerby family for years and were eager to see justice served. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Mark Armthorpe, a seasoned 50-year-old attorney known for being tough on violent crimes, argued that Cindy's actions were planned. He described Cindy as a woman consumed by jealousy and anger, unable to handle her son's relationship with Coach Robert J. McMurdo. Armthorpe emphasized the brutality of the crime, noting that Cindy not only killed her son but also worked with her husband Ralph to cover it up. The prosecution's case was strengthened by forensic evidence and Ralph's confession, which left little room for doubt. On the defense side, attorney Linda Caldwell Blankenship, a 45-year-old public defender known for handling difficult cases, argued that Cindy's actions were not planned, but rather the result of a momentary lapse in judgment caused by alcohol and emotional distress. Caldwell Blankenship tried to portray Cindy as a victim of her circumstances, struggling with addiction and mental health issues, overwhelmed by the pressures of her life. She asked for leniency, arguing that Cindy wasn't a cold-blooded killer, but a deeply troubled woman who needed help, not harsh punishment. Throughout the trial, Kyle's friends and teammates attended in support of the Ellerby family, their faces showing the pain and confusion of losing a beloved friend in such a tragic way. The jury deliberated for just 2 days before delivering their verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. Cindy Ellerby was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. While the verdict brought some closure to Kyle's friends and family, the impact of the trial was profound. Cindy's sentencing left the community divided. Some felt justice was served, while others believed the punishment was too harsh for a woman clearly struggling with her own issues. For Ralph Ellerby, the trial marked the complete collapse of his family, leaving him to deal with his role in Kyle's death. In the aftermath of Cindy Ellerby's trial, life in Carbondale, Illinois, was forever changed for those involved. Cindy, now serving her 25-year sentence at Logan Correctional Center, had little contact with the outside world. Her time in prison was marked by isolation and regret as she faced the consequences of her actions. The once vibrant woman who had been a familiar face at high school football games had become a shadow of her former self, lost in the routine of prison life. Ralph Ellerby, Kyle's father, was left to pick up the pieces of his broken life. He sold the family home, unable to bear living in the place where his son had died. Ralph moved to a small apartment on the outskirts of town, where he continued to struggle with his guilt. He had lost not only his son and wife, but also the respect of the community. Once a prominent figure in Carbondale, Ralph now found himself isolated and alone, with only his memories for company. His battle with alcohol worsened, and he rarely left his apartment, becoming a recluse. Coach Robert J. McMurdo, at the center of the scandal, resigned from his position at the high school. The revelation of his relationship with Kyle had ruined his career. Although he was never charged with a crime, the damage to his reputation was permanent. McMurdo moved out of state, trying to rebuild his life in anonymity. However, the stigma followed him, making it difficult to escape his past. He took on low-profile jobs, avoiding any positions that would put him in the public eye. The Carbondale community, once united in support of the Ellerby family, was left divided and disillusioned. The trial had exposed the town's darker side, shattering its image of perfection. In the years that followed, the memory of Kyle Ellerby's tragic death lingered, a reminder of the secrets that can tear a family and a town apart.